Right, so I'm in Bucharest now for about a year, since actually last November of 2008. My whole interest, though, in Romania stems from it's the countryside. It's always been the countryside, and so I mean I don't have any Romanian heritage. I have Northern European Swedish heritage. Sort of my family's came over to America about like 4 generations ago, like 100 years ago. And I studied modern European history in the States, in Minnesota. But I've been doing photography since I was about like 10 years old. When my whole family went on a trip to Europe back in like 1988 when I was 10. So I fell in love with Europe then. But
Sweden. Sweden probably was.
no, we didn't actually go over to Sweden then. We've been to Sweden. We didn't go to Sweden then, but we have sort of this long, even though we're American, we have this sort of long-standing connection with Europe, just because my mother also, as a child, lived in Switzerland, and then like my sister has lived in France and is married to a Frenchman. But let me get back to how I came to Romania. So I've been doing photography since I was 10 years old. But even when I was like 13 or 14 in high school in America, I remember seeing all the pictures coming out of Eastern Europe. This is back in the early 1990s. And there was a particular photographer, an American photographer named Anthony Swa, who photographed the Romanian Revolution, and he also then spent the next few years in the early 1990s photographing. He's one of the first photographers, Western photographers, to photograph all throughout Romania right after the fall of communism. And I saw these pictures in sort of yearly photojournalism yearbooks. I was very much into looking at photojournalism, even though I was like 13 years old. Anyways, I saw these pictures, and so for like the next 5 years, all I wanted to do was to get to Romania. And I finally had the chance in the spring of 2000, when I was studying French in Paris, sort of on a semester abroad program from my college in the United States. And as soon as I had the chance, I took the train from Paris over to Romania. And that sort of began this whole love affair that I have with Romania. So in April of 2000, I actually only spent 1 day in Bucharest that time. I was only here for a week, but I managed to go up through Cluj, up to Baia Mare, to Maramureș, and I'd read about Maramureș. This photographer I'm talking about, Anthony Swa, had been to Maramureș. I'd seen these pictures. I knew this was like this amazing, sort of intact, rural folk life, sort of nowhere else, there was nowhere else like this in Europe, right? That's what I had read. So I went up there, only spent a few days, 2 days in Maramureș, then, went back to France, went back next year, back to college, finished my college degree, finally came back to Romania in 2002, and that's when I tried to come back and try to see if I could spend a large period of time in Maramureș photographing. Came back in the summer of 2002, up in Maramureș, and I went directly to Maramureș from Budapest. This is in August of 2002. And this is where it began my whole sort of really just obsession with Maramureș, was when I met this family making a haystack at the end of the summer in a field in a particular village off of the Iza Valley. This is this village called Velen. It's right near Barsana. I don't know if you're familiar with this whole area, but I stayed with them for one night. They asked me in just to stay for them for one night. I wasn't expecting to stay. And I stayed in contact with them through a friend I had met in Baia Mare, who stayed in contact with the family. Anyways, to make a long story short, I was able to come back in the Christmas, La Crăciun, in December of 2002, expecting to stay for like a month to photograph, the pig slaughter,
And all
the traditions. I ended up then, though, extending it for most of the next year. And I left twice, because my sister was living in France and Paris. But basically, I sort of did that's sort of in vogue now. You sort of can go and like do these rural homestays, I basically did a homestay long before there was really any tourism there. So I didn't really pay any money, but I helped out on the farm. It was sort of this agreement, unspoken almost. Almost. This is back, though, like 6 years ago, but this is back in 2003. I then spent from December 2002 all the way up to November, right now, 6 years ago, November of 2003, I lived with this family.
What's their name?
It's the Nemes, which people say is Hungarian, but they're not Hungarian. Is that true?
Yeah, I think Nemes
But they're not
means
Hungarian.
something like 40,
Yeah?
but I'm not sure. It's a proper name for them.
Yeah.
It sounds Hungarian.
I mean, that whole region, though, you're close. If you go further, west to Satu Mare, you're right on the Hungarian. That whole region, there's lots of Hungarians. So that's been my whole interest originally, was in the countryside, and it still is. Now, when I was first there, though, of course, in 2003, and especially in this particular village where I was, it was sort of right before all the youth started going to Italy and Spain to work, and I think, I go back to this village regularly, right? So I've kept a long-term relationship up with them, and I'm still working on this book project about. I was there for a year, but I've sort of extended the project over many years now. But of course, the year I was there, it was before hardly any people from the village had gone anywhere, and it's been like in 2004, 2005, when pretty much anyone in their 20s or 30s, who wasn't married, they got these contracts. Originally, of course, before Romania was in the European Union, they were getting these sort of, la negru, black
market
jobs, but it didn't really matter because they were getting like construction jobs, or a lot of them were doing sort of like itinerant agricultural jobs, like in Spain, picking grapes and olives and things like that, because that's what they're very good at. The people in Maramuresh are incredibly hard workers. Like, that's the thing. They work harder than the native Spanish or Italian. So it's changed. It's changed a bit actually now. And then, like, in the last year, in this one village, this Vilaine where I am, they've gotten internet. It's just kind of funny. You have like kids like instant messaging, and yet there's, I guess you see this all across Romania, but yet outside you have like horse carts in the street. So it's a very strange juxtaposition.
They go feed the cows and then come back
and do instant messaging. Yeah, and of course in 2003 also there was no cell signal. There was no mobile. That came in like in 2006 there, in this particular village I'm talking about. That changed things. Just because you can like text while you're in the fields. It's little changes like that.
So what is the bigger picture? This project you were talking about, is it about, I don't know, taking photographs from Eastern Europe and writing a book, or?
Yeah, but it would be great to extend the project, but I've never been able to actually do that. And also things are changing very rapidly now. Not just because more countries have come into the European Union. I don't know how much that's really changing things actually, but just in the last few years, it seems the technology has really moved on a lot, and it's infiltrated all these villages, not just in Romania. So my original idea was to photograph these amazing rural traditions that were fast disappearing all over the place, and they seem to be still in existence in Maramuresh, of course also in other villages in Romania. I'd always heard those sort of that the strongest traditions, and people were really proud of the traditions, was in Maramuresh, so that's why I'd gone there. Now, as I've continued the project, and I still have yet to make this book, I've shown it to a publisher in Italy, but anyways, it's still sort of ongoing, because I don't really want to finish the project, because I like doing the project so much. It's sort of now I'm looking at, I guess it'll be like a 10-year project, where I'm looking at the traditions and then also looking at how things have changed. And I tried to start doing that a little bit when I've been up there. Like, all of the traditional pictures I've made have always been in black and white. And then I'm trying to continue to start this newer project looking at the youth in color. It seems like it might be a bit of a cliche. I don't know. I seem to do much better sort of just photographing the traditional life in black and white up there. That's what stands out to people, I think.